Are you going to school for something right now?
Right now I'm in education, but in all honesty, I've been trying to get into in the school of physiotherapy. It's just right now it's so competitive. It's as bad, if not worse, than med school.
Nice. Yeah. So I graduated. Are you in Canada? Is that where you're at?
Yeah. In Edmonton.
Can you go anywhere like in the States if you wanted to? It's like kind of.
I can. I think the only thing is I have to pay out of country tuition, which I think is about $17,000 a year.
You damn Canadians, always.
I know.
I'm kidding. That's cool, man. Yeah. I've been a PT actually since 2009, and so that's kind of how I got into I was doing Jiu-Jitsu. I kind of started Jiu-Jitsu in like 2008 while I was in the midst of completing physical therapy school. And I started training and started people getting injured and stuff, but nothing really clicked for me. I was like, I never thought about combining the two until I switched gyms and I was training with my coach, and he had like a little tweak. He was still fighting MMA at the time. He had a little tweak in his knee, and I happened to be there, and I evaluated his knee, and kind of gave him the go ahead, and from then on I was like, I might be onto something. So so that's kind of how it started. And I was like, he's a big kind of does a lot of stuff on YouTube and stuff, so I kind of followed his lead a little bit, and always enjoyed doing the podcast. I mean, just talking to people was always kind of interesting to me. And then obviously UFC was always something I liked watching since I was since UFC 6. I think that might have been, I don't know what the first one I saw was, but so anyways, welcome to the podcast. I was going to start with asking you how a retired life is treating you. What that's like, retiring from MMA.
I think I'm more busy now and more active now than when I was fighting. I'm still teaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm competing. I'm planning on competing this year in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm wrestling on the varsity team for the University of Alberta. I'm doing pro wrestling.
Pro wrestling.
Yeah, it was just something that's on the bucket list. So
okay,
I got an opportunity this year to do a mini camp and really liked it. And because I'm not, made of cottage cheese, and decently athletic, they kind of started doing more and more with me. So it's been picking up pretty fast. And I'm doing cooking classes as well as being in university.
Yeah. How far along are you in school?
I'm for this program. If I continue in education, this will be end of the semester. I'll have two years of the 5 done.
Okay. So you can go straight. It's like your undergrad you're working on right now.
Yeah, because I have an environmental science degree, but unfortunately, not a lot of those things transfer directly over into education, and so. I'm taking what I can, but so far I've got a whole bunch of stuff checked off for almost 2 complete years, so I'm pretty happy about that.
How was that transition to you? I mean, did you always plan on retiring early from fighting, or was that just something you're going to kind of ride as long as you could?
For me, it was about going. It was about following my passion. That was the big thing. So. For following my passion, it is starting to hit the point where I just didn't like it anymore. I didn't want to be that guy who had to fight. You see a lot of these guys because they know nothing else. That's the only life they know. And I never wanted to be that guy. I'm not a dumb guy. I know to plan for the future. I have savings. I have all these things ready for the rest of my life. But, I've hit the age where I want to do things I enjoy. I want to do things that make me feel happy. And fighting no longer was really that thing for me. And then I kind of was during the summer, I was taking time to think about what were the things I love doing. And I love teaching. And I love helping people. So, and that's why these things are kind of on the list of future things, if I never get into physiotherapy or into education, and those are the right routes, right?
Yeah, well, it's funny that, man, I took the similar route, not in the same order, but a similar route because I got my bachelor's degree in physical education, so basically an education degree, and that was kind of my backup plan. And then getting into PT school or physiotherapy school is really, it's the way they've changed things around. There's just a lot more competition, and it's like, but I think that having things that set you apart, being an older, like, we had some people graduate in their early 20s, I was about mid 20s, mid to late 20s when I graduated. But, I think that gives you an advantage, I think because you've already done a lot of stuff. So, I think for me personally, it'd be hard as hell to go back to school. I think, like, if I chose a career path to, like, not be in school for a while, and then go back. Were you training and going to school at the same time? Was that kind of like you did two things, or?
Yeah, at first, and then I retired, and I just kind of like went right into just full-time studies, and I'm teaching kickboxing, boxing, and doing privates and stuff like that. So I'm not like the first time where I was just like poor student. But like back to what you were saying. My wrestling coach, right before our last tournament, he's like, we got our grades in. Old man Clarke, because that's what he calls me, because he's a jerk. But he's like,
that's right.
Mitch, his worst mark was a B plus, and after taking 10 years off, that's a pretty big deal. So
yeah.
I was pretty happy about that, and it just, like you said, it's difficult to come back and. The way we study is different. The way that it's taught is different. Kids today are different, and they complain a lot more. So it's
kids today. There you go. That's how you know you're old as shit. The kids today.
Oh yeah. Someone asked me, they're like, "How old are you?" I'm like, "Well, I'm 32, but every day I'm basically on the edge of becoming Clint Eastwood in Gran Torino minus the racism."
Yeah. So you're like you went back to school and you were eligible to do wrestling, to be on the wrestling team?
Yeah, I still had 3 years of eligibility left.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so basically I was training with like in a course for Cal State Bakersfield. I trained with guys at Grand Canyon University, ASU. I have all this extra experience, and then wrestling with top-notch, Div 1, Div 2 guys in the States. So I get all this extra help to help me this year and next year and the year after, hopefully.
Yeah.
For wrestling.
Well, how does your body feel like now at 32, going through wrestling practices and kind of, do you have to do things different than the younger guys? I mean, you have to take more time off, more recovery. What kind of things are you doing?
For me, the prehab is the big things. Making sure my shoulders are properly warmed up, my knees, my hips, doing my banding, having a chiropractor. These type of things are what are allowing me to be able to compete. Also, the coach knows that I know my body, and if I say I'm out, that means I'm out. For me at least, I don't have that bounce back like the kids do, where they wrestle a tournament, they take half a day off, and they can wrestle again. I took third at the Husky Open, the U of S Open, and up 2 weight classes from where I wrestled originally. I was wrestling at 82 kilos when originally I wrestled at 66 kilos and 70 kilos.
It's a big difference.
So that's a lot of weight, and I was the smallest guy. I took third, got some big throws and stuff, but for the next 4 days, my body was, my lower back, stuff that I had never even thought of, just from being in my stance, being pulled on, being yanked on by guys that were 200 pounds. It made a big, but to me, it's just about being smart. Tom and Terry Brands, when Terry Brands was getting ready for the Olympics, I remember he was really talking about how when he felt good, he would wrestle hard. When he didn't feel good, he wouldn't wrestle hard. So I think being more mature and knowing my body a little bit better has definitely paid dividends and will allow me to compete longer.
What are the cues? Like, do you do you look for? Like, what signals in your body like tell you that maybe you should take a lighter day or take a day off?
For me now, usually it's my if I notice my posture's coming up a lot like this,
Yeah,
usually
like
that's a sign
shoulders are
that
shrugging. And,
yeah, like I'm getting caveman / classic wrestler posture.
yeah.
If I on the inside of my hips in the front, if I know that, it's just because I have a really tiny waist. I have a size 28 waist.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so it gets super tight because big butt, bigger legs,
Yeah.
tiny waist. I'm not made for wrestling. If anything, I'd probably be better at bodybuilding if I could diet or get huge. Eventually.
It's funny. Like you say that, like tiny waist, but like I watched some of your fights. Actually, your last fight I watched, and it's kind of watching your positioning of your like legs and your knees.
Yeah.
Kind of like a little bit. Are you a little knock knee? Kind of like knees kind of go inward.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I watched you move, and I was like, man, but he's moving and doing all kinds of stuff, but it's not an ideal position. It's almost like it can definitely wear on your joints faster, and you're more prone to injury, I think, being in those kind of positions of your legs.
100%. So, like, because of the tiny waist, and it causes I've been knock-kneed my whole life, and I've done stuff to try my best to alleviate that as much as possible. A lot of glute med work. Part of it too is because I did judo for a while, and wrestled. My ligaments in my ankles are really lax, so it really highlights how much my knees come in. It just makes it look even worse.
Right. Yeah, like if you're really flat-footed as well. Like if you're really flat-footed, they'll collapse your knees inward. Your hips will rotate inward as well, and then it forces you to kind of forward bend and shuts off those glutes and those. Yeah. I know the whole thing. And some of that, man, you can combat some of that, but some of that is just kind of how you were made, And there's only so much I think you can do. You can do all the stretching and for the front of your hips and all the strengthening for your glutes and abductors, but after I think there's only so much your body can do. I think.
Oh, 100%. But for me, it's about making sure that I put my body in the best position I can.
Sure.
I relearned kind of how to squat properly because I would just all these things that, how do I put this? A lot of fighters don't do this type of homework on their body because they're only thinking in the now. Instead, I want to be able to, play with my kids. I want to be able to, teach sports. I don't want to be that. We all know that old hobbled guy that comes to the gym and everyone's like, oh yeah, there he is. That's Mitch. He fought 20 years ago and now he barely moves. I don't want to be that guy. I want to be the guy who, if I have to, I can kind of show some stuff. I'm not going to get in there and spar with the young bucks, but for me, it's about quality of life as well.
Sure, long term.
Yeah.
It was funny, you say that I was at the Master Worlds 2016 Jiu-Jitsu tournament, and you got all the over 30 older guys, and so we were out there, and this black belt, I don't even know, I don't think he was that old, but he's got a cane, and he's got literally a cane walking to the mat. He can barely move. And then, I swear, he gets on the mat, leaves the cane, off the mat, and it's just a totally different person. And then he's rolling and he's moving around, and then as soon as the match is over, he's barely standing, he's all hunched over. He hobbles to the end of the mat, and it's just crazy. It's just kind of turning it on, and it's weird, man. Once you, I guess maybe when you get in the zone, certain things muscle memory kicks in or what, I don't know. But it was so weird to see that guy hobble onto the mat. And then when he looked completely different when doing jiu-jitsu, and then come back and he's just hobbling around. It was kind of funny, but yeah, you bring up a lot of good points, man. What do you think was your something going on? Some kind of hush. Something's going on. I hear some kind of buzzing. So, all right. Well, so as far as retiring, what was your? Did you have any kind of idea about when you wanted to retire? What was like? Is there? I guess you said that you weren't really into it or not as, I guess, invested in it wasn't as fun for you anymore. Was that the other cue? Was it like maybe anything? Did wins and losses or injuries have anything to do with it as well?
Um, there's a couple things. In all honesty, part of it was I love training. I absolutely love it, but the performance anxiety was getting more and more pronounced every fight. It was becoming worse, and I wasn't having that kickoff, that hitting the zone anymore. It wasn't happening anymore. So what was happening is it happening later and later and later. So the best time frame to kind of do it, it was when I fought John McGuire. It was the perfect in the zone. You could feel the electricity in the air. Every punch was heaved through. It was kind of slower. I could move. I felt good. With Ally Quinta, the first round it didn't buzz in. It wasn't until the second round. Then I felt good, and that's when I hit him with that right hand, and then I hit that choke. In the Chiesa fight, nothing was happening. And then when in the third round, when I knew I had to do something, I said, "F it, I'm gonna go." And that's when it kicked on. I didn't really get a chance for it to kick on when I fought what's his name, the big Irish guy that choked me out. Joe Duffy.
Okay.
So when I fought Joe Duffy, because I blew out my knee, meniscus, PCL, and it was just like I went to step back, felt it pop, and then I went to put my weight on it, and then I fell like Ric Flair. So, it sucks, and it gets more and more disappointing. And to be honest, I love my fans. I love the fans that I have. I have most, but the people who are detractors for no reason and just want to crap on you for no reason, those people they have this anonymity that they feel like it's okay to talk trash to you. They really suck it out of you.
Like social media, like just people. Yeah, but man, I don't know. I guess it's easier for me to say than for you to say. But like those people who usually say that type of shit have no idea. Like they have no idea what it takes to do what you did. And I've heard. I think that's something that can be a challenge to kind of. I don't know. I think some people handle it better than others. But. I wanted to ask you, to explain, performance anxiety. Were you just kind of nervous going on the mats, or was it, something like you felt like you were in the zone eventually? Or, what was that performance anxiety for you? How did you deal with it? And for some people, I think it would get easier throughout the little more you do, the more matches you do. Say a jiu-jitsu tournament, if you compete regularly, it kind of gets – you still have some of that nervousness, but it's maybe not as much of a hindrance. Explain that performance anxiety component.
It was just so. So before the Joe Duffy fight, I was battling just normal anxiety, and going through bouts of depression and stuff like that. I was on medication for depression. That's why I took a bunch of time off as well. Was for that. But, it felt like that. That's how it felt, combined with nervousness. And it felt like your emotions were running through, it was just through quicksand. It was just one thing and, what's going to happen? And
sure.
And you just, it take all those nerves that are in jiu-jitsu matches or in wrestling matches or anything. And then you're just going to amplify it because it's an awful feeling, and I don't really wish. And it's not everyone has it. It was happening to me. It was getting worse every fight, and that's why I knew that there was a problem. I was seeing a sports psych, and when I do the jiu-jitsu super fights, I wouldn't have it. I felt like I got in the zone. I was like, okay, well maybe now we fixed it because we went through the process of getting my body firing, get my mind firing, getting, tensing up, relaxing, how I'm supposed to, doing my breathing, all this stuff. And then when I go to do it before fight, nothing. no response. It would just get worse.
So you just feel kind of drained almost before the fight? Like couldn't get your energy?
I just emotionally drained. And like before, that used to be one of my biggest assets. Was even near the end, I'm too damn tough for my own good. But but the toughness only gets you so far. And probably one of the biggest things that makes me sad about my career is I never got to show in fights how I was in the gym. And unfortunately, we all know those guys who were gym warriors and that kind of thing. But like, if seeing rounds of me in training were totally different than rounds in fights.
Yeah.
And like I'd show little spurts of brilliance, but then in fights, but also like I'd show massive holes of just doing things I wouldn't do. So.
Did you have like mental lapses? Like, were you thinking about certain things in your head while you were fighting? I mean, were you like not there completely? Like you weren't just focused on the fight? Were you somewhere else? Or was it like
you just
maybe
get sucked
fear?
in? You get sucked into a certain idea. Like the unfortunate thing too is being tough, quote unquote tough. It's easy for me to get sucked into a slugfest too. I have no issue with it, but that's not the game plan when you're, a college wrestler and a jiu-jitsu black belt. It's probably not the best idea just to go slug. It's stupid. So.
Yeah. What did you think? I mean, as far as like being tough, like is there when you realize the time that like, man, I can take a punch or I can take punishment and keep going, or is that just something you were born with? Is it something you kind of developed over time?
I actually attribute that probably to my wrestling coaches in high school and university. They were tough, hard coaches,
Yeah.
Like we do hour-long grind matches for spots. And if you left the mats during that hour, during your quote-unquote match, then guess what? You don't get out of your spot. You're not a starter. You're not this. So I still don't drink water during practice.
Really?
Just because and I know it's silly, but it was just something that was ingrained in me. Like, you don't need water during that hour, which is not true.
So that's what you all did. You would not drink water during
practice. Yeah, it's old school, too tough for my own good mentality, unfortunately. And then just in fights, it was just because that was the thing. I click on and that Roadhouse quote, "Pain don't hurt."
Yeah, that's right.
So,
people don't know about that, man. You might have to educate about a little Patrick Swayze action. What that was, Patrick Swayze?
Yeah, it's Patrick Swayze.
Yeah,
Pain don't hurt.
That guy being tough, it just doesn't make sense to me.
He's way too good looking to be tough.
Well, what was that dancing movie he was in?
Oh,
shit, what was that?
Was that Footloose? No, it wasn't Footloose.
You know what I mean.
I know what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, Roadhouse was awesome. But, yeah, like, so did sometimes you getting hit kind of wake you up or get you in the zone? Was that something that kind of happened, or you needed to be hit in the head, I guess?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think especially like my first pro fight, I was kind of chasing him. I was just trying to touch him, and he was moving, and he dings me. He's a southpaw, dings me with a straight left, and then it's like laser focus goes in like that. Double leg him, take him down, pass, go to mount, start elbowing the hell out of him, and it was done.
Mitch, a question. Do you think back to the anxiety thing? Do you think it was kind of more of the possibility of the increased severity of injury? Like not knowing the outcome. I mean, in jiu-jitsu match, you could get choked out. Obviously, there could be some injuries, but the injuries in MMA are a lot more severe and a lot more likely, I guess. Getting hit in the head or whatever. Like, was that part of the thing that maybe messed with you somewhat, or?
Somewhat. I agree. Like having injuries happen, wanting to do well. And so there's two other things I think that I didn't really mention is number one was the Tim Hag death that happened here in Edmonton.
Yeah. Was his during a fight, or was it he got like hit in the head or something and he like just
never woke up. Like, he got up, he went, he passed out in the locker room afterward, and he never woke up from swelling on the brain.
Sure.
And I knew Tim. Him and I weren't friends by any means. We knew each other, but no matter what anyone says, what any fighter says, that'll weigh heavily on you emotionally.
Yeah.
You think that this could be your last fight. This could be the last thing. Like, not even like your last fight. This could be your last day on Earth.
Sure.
The other thing was it was becoming harder. Well, two things, I guess. It was getting harder and harder for me to make 155 pounds. It's not easy for me to make.
Sure.
But also combined with, it was hard for me to put my family, my loved ones, my girlfriend through this. It's so hard. It's hard to, with someone you care about so much, and you have to watch them be in pain emotionally because they're watching you do something that you're passionate about.
Right.
And when my passion's not there anymore, I can't put people I love through that type of pain. And that for me was the big thing where I was like, I can't do this to these people I care about anymore. And that's kind of why we get a little misty-eyed right now. Is it just feels so selfish of me to do that to people who mean the world to me.
Right. No, I mean, I think, like, they're still trying to figure out, because MMA is such a young sport, they're still trying to figure out kind of, what are going to be some long-term effects. And there's, when I was actually, like, in school, in PT school, I kind of, I think I had to write some kind of paper on something I chose, I think something along the lines of, MMA and how it's maybe safer than boxing. I don't even know what this was for, but, I mean, in some terms it can be safer, in some terms it's not. I mean, you look at boxing, you're taking repetitive shots to the head. They may not be as hard as shots because of the, the gloves being bigger, but then in MMA, the other thing is you don't get a standing 8 count or, or whatever. Like, so if you get clipped, you're done. But on the other hand, I think you see a lot more knockouts in MMA than you would in boxing, and who knows which one's worse? Getting kind of maybe concussed or knocked down, or maybe even knocked out for a second, and then being able to regain your senses and then stand back up and take more punishment. I don't know, but yeah, there was MMA is one of those things. Like, I grew up watching obviously movies and stuff, and then MMA kind of came around, and it was like, holy shit, what is that? What's this Jiu-Jitsu? What's this, like, just craziness, any kind of, submissions and crazy kicks now. And sometimes, like, I think I found it harder to watch some of these fights that like just two guys going at it and just really just throwing down, just beat to shit. Like, I don't know if you watched fights yesterday at all. Do you still watch fights?
Yeah, I watched some of the fights yesterday.
So, like, see Darren Elkins?
Yeah.
That dude, like, I mean, he fought Michael Johnson, and, like, that dude is, like, holy shit, how durable. But that is, like, you can't live off that forever. Like, eventually that goes away. Like, eventually you can't take a shot, and then, bad shit happens. You start slurring your words or whatever,
That's what someone like me is scared of, and that's why I said no more. I don't want to be that guy who you feel sorry for, who can't tie his shoes.
Right.
Like, he's trying to tie his shoes, but he's fumbling. Can't really, like, express himself because his words are all slurred.
Yeah.
And we've seen him. I see him at the boxing gyms I work at, or the boxing gyms when. I go hit the bag and stuff like that. You want to spar? No, I'm good. But it breaks your heart to see, and like I was saying earlier, sometimes that's all those guys know is fighting. That's all they know.
Did you spar really hard at all, like during your camps? Did you modify that as you trained?
So early in my career, yes. It was probably twice a week hard sparring, and during camp.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to the MMA lab, they had 2 days a week of hard sparring.
That's in Arizona?
Yeah, and it was a great gym, and John Crouch did a lot of great things for my career. Benson Henderson, a bunch of the guys there, the Murphys, they're great. And then I went to Jackson's, and I clicked really well with a couple of the coaches, Mike Winklejohn primarily, and Chad Smith, their wrestling coach. Just like personality-wise, how concept-wise of fighting really clicked with me. And they were doing their best to mitigate how much hard sparring there was. They wanted guys to make it to this fight and not be vegetables.
Sure, yeah.
Save it for the fight. And they used to be known as a hard sparring gym, but they were saying guys are getting conkies. They're not, they're not able to fight, or they're fighting and they get knocked out when they're not supposed to. So, so that was a big thing. Was like, even though I didn't get a win while I was at JW, it was important for me to, I learned so much. I got really deep connections. And like when I started fighting, the guy who I was watching and really looking up to was Diego Sanchez, and then I was one of his main training partners.
That's awesome.
And that's for me, that's nuts. And then he's still competing, he's still doing it.
Long time. And he's one of those guys that could take. I don't think he can really take a punch as well as he used to. Because man, if you remember that fight with BJ Penn, like he got his head split open. BJ Penn. That's when BJ Penn was in his prime. How long ago was that? Like 07?
Something like that. 07, 09 or something like that.
Am I thinking crazy? I don't know. How many good God. BJ Penn. And he's another guy. He used to he would just come forward and get hit in the head and he'd nothing. And then, eventually he kind of started to, not be able to take a punch as well. But yeah, Diego was one of those guys, man. You just knew how tough he was. I saw him fight in Louisville, because I'm in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Years ago. There was a fight night. I think he fought maybe Martin Campman or something.
Oh, yeah. That fight was
nuts. Crazy fight. I was there, and I was just like, holy shit. That was a crazy one. I think probably one of the craziest fights I saw. I was in Vegas. That was the one where Robbie Lawler had his lips split open.
And Roy's nose was busted.
Destroyed, and I guess it was the fifth round, and Roy just dropped and didn't get. And we were just sitting there watching, and we're pretty far back, but he's not moving, not getting up.
Yeah,
I was like, what the hell? What kind of crazy fight? It's just that was tough to watch. Some of them was super tough to watch, those kind of fights. And then they're fun, but I'm just as enjoyable watching a jiu-jitsu, just two jiu-jitsu guys going at it. And going for crazy submissions and throwing stuff up and being aggressive on the ground. I think it's just as fun, but that's me.
But you're also, you understand jiu-jitsu. You understand of how these micro motions can change something from working to not working.
Sure. Yeah. It's totally different with strikes too. Dude, you're not going to go in a deep half on people.
No.
You're not. And that's some stuff I do, and I'm like, some of this shit you're not going to work. And that's where you go into, I always have this discussion about, jiu-jitsu on the street or versus sport jiu-jitsu or self-defense, those two. And it's there's a purpose to, sport jiu-jitsu, and there's a purpose to, self-defense jiu-jitsu. They're both important for each other.
Yep. I believe that the concepts stay the same, but the application changes. The idea of chokes and staying safe. A lot of my MMA jiu-jitsu is very similar to self-defense jiu-jitsu.
Sure, yeah.
Because you're trying to stay safe. There's just less biting. My sport jiu-jitsu game is completely different. Diving on legs and deep half, and I don't bear and bolo. I'm not flexible enough for that.
You're not? All right, well. Yeah. That inverted game is, man, that's crazy. It's definitely a young guy's game, but, I think if you can do it, if you can pull it off, it's definitely effective.
Oh, totally. Rolling with Eduardo Tellis, he has an affiliate school here, and one of my good buddies, he's affiliated through him. He's a black belt through him, and rolling with Eduardo Professor Eduardo is insane, and he gets inverted, and he's so flexible, and he likes a nice, fun roll, and it's nuts. But like as you said, he's this guy who's over 40, and he's doing inverted stuff and no-gi berimbolo, and you're just like, this is nuts. Like you just see the level between black belt and like world level black belt.
Right. There's definitely levels. Yeah, there's definitely levels for sure. I mean, I was at another gym. I was out of town. I was at another gym, and man, I had some tough rolls with like a brown belt. I had a tough roll with another brown belt. He got the better of me, but there's just levels. There's levels to every belt. I mean, I've rolled with some purple belts that are just so tough, and some purple belts are just they're just levels. Every single belt, black belt especially. I mean, it's just guys that put in the time and have just been at it for a long time. But then you've got levels. I mean, shit, you got a world champion guy versus your everyday jiu-jitsu guy trains a couple days a week or whatever. I mean, the black belt, they have the same belt, but man, it's the skill level's totally different. And a lot of that's muscle memory and just that's what they do full time versus it's kind of a side thing that you do. It's totally different. And yeah, for sure. Mitch, I was gonna ask you, man, what kind of what was your start in sports, or how did you start and get into MMA originally? Was there, obviously, it sounds like your family weren't the biggest fans of you probably fighting and stuff. So how did you progress to fighting MMA? What was your start?
Really, like I did karate or taekwondo as a young kid, but that has as much, did as much for me to get me into fighting as ballet would have. It was really had no real impact on me in that sense. But it was wrestling. Wrestling kind of like got me motivated to be the best kind of athlete I could be, the best, mentally tough, well-rounded athlete I could be, and so it was a big part of it. And then wrestling college, and I didn't even tell my parents I was training because I knew that they would be upset. Yeah. I'm not terrible looking. I'm not the best looking guy, but I'm not terrible looking, and I'm decently smart. So I knew that would piss them off. So I had a couple of amateur fights. I never told them about it.
Really?
Yeah. And then I told them I was having a pro fight, and they're like, "What?" And so they came and watched. My stepmom came, and when she came, and my music hits. I think it was "Running with the Devil" by Van Halen. And right before I stepped the cage, she just ran crying. And it was didn't even get to watch me. And I just beat this turd up in 90 seconds. And he hit me once. That was it. But just it's just terrible for my family.
Yeah.
So, but they realized that I was pretty decent at it. And so I have a great family. I'm very lucky that they're so supportive. So they were supportive. Once they realized I was good at it, I liked it. And, it was my passion. So they were always really supportive. But yeah, wrestling, I think is just one of the best sports. I love jiu-jitsu, but the reason why I'm good at jiu-jitsu is because of wrestling.
Sure.
And it's not necessarily because I use wrestling. It's because I take the mentality from wrestling and apply it to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I've been guilty of this as well, of playing really passive with jiu-jitsu. I realized it just wasn't really me. Being aggressive, using a pressure game is where you got the best me out of in grappling.
Yeah.
Especially after rolling with I rolled with Lovato Jr.
Mm-hmm.
That was awful. It was terrible. It was the worst thing ever. His pressure game is insane.
Really? He was awesome. I saw him at Master Worlds, and he won his division, man. He was just, holy shit, man. He was incredible. And he was just, that's when you go look at levels of jiu-jitsu. You see that his level is just surpasses so many. And he's an older guy that's doing, kind of started MMA late, and he's doing really well. I mean, he's undefeated still.
Yeah.
He's super tough. I mean, and he uses like half guard sweeps and all kinds of stuff. That, in actual MMA fights, like certain stuff, it's certain sweeps, and he just sets them up, and I was like, holy shit, man! I mean, it just works. It works when punches are being thrown too. It's awesome.
Well, what I teach a lot of the MMA fighters I still teach is you can make anything from jiu-jitsu, wrestling. You can make it work, but you have to have belief in it, and you have to be able to adjust it accordingly.
Sure.
Like the choke I got on Al Iquinta, I'm not going to just kind of like pull side control and just let that happen. I had to set it up, and I used strikes to kind of set it up, and I think he was a little bit dazed from.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hit him, and he went down, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I knocked someone down, and I ran after him, and he just kind of like he grabbed my legs and doubled me there, but I had like smashed my hip into his face, like starting to sprawl. So I think he was dazed from that, and from my bony, tiny hips. So
you knocked him out with your hip essentially before you choked him out.
Yeah, that's how I think it happened, or I just used a really crazy jiu-jitsu thing he was not expecting. So one or the other.
All right. Was it a Darce? Was it Darce you got him on with?
Yeah, it was the very Jeff Glover style coming underneath from side control style Darce. So
that's
crowning
awesome.
achievement.
Would you say that's probably your? I mean, he's very successful still. Would you say that's probably your biggest win?
Oh, definitely. That's my biggest win. But I have two favorite performances, and one was against John McGuire. I was supposed to get destroyed. He was coming down to 155, and I'd watched him. I was like, this guy's really good. And then he's going to 55, and you're like, you're fighting him when I was, oh, man. And I beat him up, and when he was still good. Now that he's fighting in Cage Warriors, he's probably not training as much, and we all get older. It happens.
Right.
And then the other performance I'm proud of is, even though I lost to Michael Chiesa, for me it was I showed a lot of grit, where I could have gotten finished a couple times, and then that third round I came out, ready to kill or be killed and throw bombs, and there's certain times where you can just give up. It's really easy to give up. Quitting is like the easiest thing you can do. I could have at any point in that fight just got that rear naked choke and said, all right, well, it's kind of in. We're done here. But, is really having that gut check time and saying, I can do this. And I didn't win, but in another sense, for me, I won. I'm just some bum from Canada, I think pretty much his exact words. And I made it a knockdown, drag-out brawl, and, the next fight he finishes Jim Miller, and he finished Beneil Dariush. Like, these are really good black belts.
Yeah.
So, and he didn't finish me.
Was that was a decision loss, correct?
Yeah.
So, all right, let me ask you something. So, 2 rounds in, you're down 2 rounds to 0, correct?
Yeah.
What's your mentality? Like, what do you think? What do you tell yourself? Like,
well, my coach is telling me you have to finish him. Use your hands. Use your strikes, because I thought I was a better striker. And then as soon as I started kind of get going, they're like, use your hands, because it was just like done kicking, except I was kicking his knee out. But for me, it was just like, what went through my head was fuck it. That's really what it was. That was exactly it. Let's, go out on your shield is all I could think of. If I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose in a blaze of glory, I'm going to go out there and show how tough I am, and that, I'm not going to be that guy who shrinks under the pressure. I was coming out, and I wanted to finish him, if I could. I tried really hard. I hit him hard. He's tough. He's tough. He's good. All these things.
Absolutely.
But I was not backing down. I was not going to back down.
So, as far as that was how many fights in your UFC career? That wasn't your second, third, maybe.
No, that was my fifth.
Yeah. Okay. So you were like 9-0, before you got the call, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, tell me about that. Tell me about having a good pro record. You kind of fought all your fights in Canada, right?
Yeah.
And so 9-0, were you like trying to? Was the goal to get into the UFC? Was it just you were being scouted? What was kind of going on?
So I was trying to make that next step. It wasn't about going directly to the UFC. For me, it was about taking another experienced fight. Taking that next kind of jump because I didn't have that, and that's really what I was missing was that in between the regional circuit and luckily now they have like LFA
Right.
and all these really these other shows. I got a Bellator offer and we turned it down. Because I didn't want to fight for Bellator.
Seems like a lot of people do now. So I mean,
a lot of
maybe
people
it's different.
do now. I'd almost rather if the end of career I might have wanted to end. Go to Bellator.
That's where people go, man. That's where people go in their career. Most of them. Some of them do, I guess.
Well, you get more money, and sometimes you don't have to fight as tough of guys. So I feel like it's win-win.
Maybe.
Well, they have some absolute studs, but you take someone like Phil Davis. He's making more money now, and he's not fighting, these other Div 1 national champion wrestlers, and he doesn't have to fight John Jones or Daniel Cormier to be the top of the division.
Yeah. Well, I think he fought what's his name? Who's a champ now? A light heavyweight.
Bader?
What's that?
Is it Bader?
Yeah, Bader. And
Bader's really good.
Sure, but yeah. I think there's obviously guys better than Ryan Bader.
Yep.
But yeah, he's solid. I mean, he's solid up there, probably top 5, top 7.
Mm-hmm.
But who did you fight for before you went to the UFC? By the way,
I fought for TFC, EFC, the Evolution Fighting Championship, the Fight Club.
Pretty big in Canada. Is that kind of the main? I think it was like TKO or something was a big thing. Like George St. Pierre came up through or something.
Yeah, so TKO took a break for a while, and they brought in some other ones. Like XMMA was one. It was run by Patrick Cote, and Dave Loazo had a big part in it. I'm on the other side, so I was fighting for King of the Cage Canada, and ours became AFC. So TFC became the AFC. It was a big conglomeration of like 4 other groups that kind of melded together. And then, I got the call. I was just trying to fight and make money so I didn't have to get a real job.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got the call. I mean, did they just, whatever offered you, that you just kind of took the fight that they offered?
Yeah, because my manager, he's like, it's either this or we wait till they have another opportunity for you, which could be 6 months, could be 6 years.
Right.
You never know. So it was a great style matchup, and realistically, I wasn't prepared properly, and mentally, I wasn't prepared properly. I was in good shape. I was wrestling with the university guys in town. I separated my shoulder about 3.5 weeks. It was grade 2 separation on my left shoulder.
Uh-huh.
And, looking back, I probably should have pulled out. But, it just that mentality of like, well, I got to go. It's the big show. You have to go. And, like, who knows if I'll get another opportunity. And in all honesty, I was dirt poor. I had no fucking money. I had none. I was how hard it is to diet on basically. So I was living on ground chicken, broccoli, eggs, a big thing of jasmine rice I got from Costco. No, not even from Costco. It was like Costco ripoff place for $10, and like Rockstar energy drinks because they sponsored me at the time. So like that's where I was getting my energy from. Like it sucks. It sucks like trying to get there, and you're trying to live on essentially like $30 a week.
Oh my god.
If that. Yeah, looking back, it's just like, holy shit, how did I survive? But I made it happen, and I probably should have pulled out. Didn't. I had a good first round, and then I got to ride. The best part was I got to ride after the fight after I got fucking beat up. I got to ride with Joe Silva. He's like, you looked really good in that first round, and then I could tell exactly when you got your UFC jitters, and that's exactly what it was. I went to get up the second time, and my arms felt like and my feet were filled with cement.
Holy shit! Yeah.
And it's exactly it's that UFC jersey. Like I saw Quentin Jackson get it. I watched everyone did it. I could watch it happen to you. But you didn't quit. Is exactly what he said. You could have quit. You didn't quit. Yeah. And you kept fighting. And that's why I think that's why he brought me back. And that's why he liked me. Is I always came to fight. And like the sequence that happened where I lost against Cholish was that weird Kimura trap sequence, and it was either I was going to end up on top or he was going to take my back. So it was like a weird scramble, and he got there first, and it sucks, but it happens.
Yeah. And what was it like? Is there anything particular about the UFC? I mean, obviously it's bigger, but is there anything that, did you prepare differently? Was there a lot more, media or anything like that? I mean, what was the thing about the jitters and stuff? Was it just the bigger crowd? I mean...
That was part of it. We're in Air Canada Center, which is a pretty big arena, combined with, there's so... Everything is scheduled. Like, there's so much media, and there's, and you're doing your weight cut that week, and you got to go do an interview, and then you're going to go do your video stuff, and then your photos, and then, then you're going to go cut weight, and cut some more weight, and then you're going to do this, and you're going to do that, and everything is such a big... Everything's larger than life. Everything's like it's big, like what you were doing before, and then take that and times it by 100, and you're like, it's just insane. And the thing that I tell people too is you got to think of essentially this is where you dream of working towards for X amount of years, and now you're there. Now you've reached your goal, and in your head you're like, well, now what? It's just so close you can touch it, and it's just a little bit too far away at the same time. And it's just like it's so crazy, and it's very easy for me at least to get enveloped in the moment. You just get caught up in the moment, and it was too much for me, unfortunately.
How did so when would you get your first win? How many fights in was your first win?
It was my third one. So the second fight was against Anton Kuvanen. And I got an avulsion fracture of my kneecap, as we're talking about having shitty knees, knock knees. I had a avulsion fracture of my kneecap probably about 15 seconds in.
Oh, wow. Was there a kick or...
No, I checked a kick, and it hit me on the shin. And I sat down, I went to push off really hard to cut an angle. I felt a weird pop. And I was like, that's weird. And then it just started. The best way I can describe it, someone took like a hot coal and put it on top of my kneecap.
So an avulsion fracture, I guess for people that don't know, it's basically a piece of the bone gets pulled away, or like you get a little fracture, a little crack in the bone, or sometimes like where a tendon or whatever something attaches, it pulls a piece of that bone away just because probably because of the force you put on the kneecap, essentially. So if that's
probably almost the size of a quarter of my left kneecap is missing.
Oh, wow.
So they went in and they took that out. They cut the piece of the tendon or whatever it was.
Tendon, like your the bottom. Oh shit. Dude.
Yeah. So that was fun to deal with in the middle of a fight. So I lost a split decision. And I know that this is bad, but one of the judges was Jeff Blatnick, and the fight before that I had, he stole part of my breakfast that I was eating in the hotel. Like, he started eating my toast after talking to me and my coach. It was the weirdest shit ever. And, this is someone you look up and they're starting to eat your fucking food. And I kind of made fun of him a little bit, and I feel like he was one of the judges that scored it for the other guy. So I feel like he carried that over, and I feel like I know that's just an excuse, but in my heart, that's what I feel like. For me, making fun of Jeff Blatnick.
That is the weirdest story. That's probably the best stories I've ever heard. So, yeah, he's one of the guys that kind of used to be the original commentators and all this shit. And so he walked, you were talking to him, he stole part of your breakfast.
I was eating breakfast for UFC 140. I was eating breakfast the day of the fight. And he comes and he starts like sitting and talking. It's like, oh, this is super cool. And then he just starts eating some of my toast and eating some of my food. And I'm like, what's going on? And I kind of like start making fun. I'm like, it's okay. I don't need food to fight later today.
Yeah, screw that.
It's fine. Yeah, you don't need energy. You're obviously, you're probably starving, covering all that excess body fat. And I know he's dead now, and it's not good for me to make fun of him even more, but it was just ridiculous. And he was one of the judges that scored against me in the fight against Kubanan. So
was it a pretty close fight? I mean, it was pretty close.
I won the first round. Second round was kind of like half and half.
Sure.
I thought, and I feel like I stole it because he went, I was on the bottom, and he went to, throw a big punch, and I dropped him with an up kick. And we're in 50-50. We're in 50-50, and we're hockey fighting because 50-50, I didn't prepare for 50-50 in MMA, so we're just hitting each other. In the third round, he won for sure.
Yeah.
I couldn't even, my leg had just swollen up so much, but it was just it was insane. It was a ridiculous fight, but I feel like I won that fight. And the third fight, John McGuire was the one that I won.
Yeah.
And it was just people make fun of me because after I won, I started crying and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted was. And so many people have said, you can't do this, you're not capable, you don't belong there, all this stuff, you should be cut. And it was vindication, and it was just like, for me, it just made me feel like I'm on the right path.
Yeah. Did you feel a lot of pressure going into that third fight? Was that third fight did you think you were on the verge of getting cut? I mean, usually they cut with, even 2 fights sometimes, but
yeah.
You felt like that was about it. That might have been, it for you if you didn't win.
Oh, for sure. That's usually the time where it was, and it was because I think in that second fight that it was close, and they knew I could have just thrown in the towel, but for me it was just, it was. I'm trying to think of the word. One of my trainers, he's from Japan, and he has a word for it. But he says it basically translates to fuck it.
Yeah.
And that's almost like I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna pour my heart out, and I'm gonna let the chips fall where they may.
Sure.
And it worked out for me, and that's what it's about. Is it was believing that I could do it, and training my butt off. And just working as hard as I could, and I was pretty pissed off when I found out he was wearing jean shorts and a belly shirt to the cage, and I was just I was fired up, ready to go, and he's just whatever, he's fucking gypsy. But I just went out there, and I came out, and I came to fight, and it was a very, very good feeling, deep in the cockles of your heart, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. That's awesome, man. So, did you have a lot of injuries kind of going into fights? I mean, did you ever think of pulling out? Or, I mean, obviously you thought of it, but did you ever actually pull out of a fight due to injury?
Yeah, so it was before anything got signed. It was probably the only one that I kind of pulled out of. It was after the Cholish fight, and they wanted me to fight Michael Johnson.
Oh, nice.
And it was just after he was just finished on The Ultimate Fighter, and I was like, I'd love to fight. I'll fight him. I'll fight whoever is usually what I tell him. But
sure.
I had just re-injured this, where you hit that 6-week period where you feel like you're not injured anymore.
Yes.
And that's really the time where you're most likely to get re-injured.
Yes.
And that's what happened.
So you re-injured it.
Yeah, re-injured that separated shoulder, and that was the only time I really. But I've had tiny, you have stuff where you're injured or you're sore, but you just think, oh, the adrenaline's just gonna cover up, I'll be fine, and that was true. But then I'm not getting those adrenaline, the adrenaline jump starts I need anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Mitch, what kind of injuries have you dealt with? Let's kind of delve into that a little bit. As far as injuries go, I mean, in your career, what have you dealt with? You can start kind of earlier on to, whatever, because I know you said, you kind of when you retired, you said actually when you retired and you're giving your speech to Joe Rogan, you're holding your arm. So I think you injured something in your shoulder. It might have been your left shoulder as well.
It was my hand. I thought they were pretty sure I broke my hand. It was just a lot of soft tissue damage, especially on like the thumb and stuff like that. We were trying to pull the glove off. I couldn't get it off because it was so swollen. Also, we had collided heads, and it had fractured part of my orbital.
Wow.
And so they put a plate in, and a broken heart, but there's nothing to do for that, unfortunately.
Some hugs.
Yeah, some hugs. Yeah, well, I try to use this term too. I'm very blessed with the people that I surround myself with.
Sure.
I love my girlfriend very much, and she was with me the entire way. The only reason why she wasn't in the ambulance was because they wouldn't let her in the ambulance with me. So, my coaches that I've had with me throughout, they're all great people. I've been very lucky. The PCL meniscus and partial MCL tear for the Joe Duffy fight.
Did they ever? They usually don't repair a PCL just because of all the nerves.
It wasn't a full. It wasn't ruptured.
It was like a partial.
So it was like a tear in the very middle of my meniscus, and then the MCL and PCL is just like partial tearing, and they think it was how I landed on it.
Yeah, the way you stepped back or
caused
something.
Yeah. And then I had a low hamstring tear against Chiesa when he went for the Uchimata throw. I went to hip in, and I hipped in, and he's being like 6'19".
Yeah.
That wasn't working, so he actually did like this back trip off of it. It was actually, now I can say it was a beautiful takedown. Yeah. But like basically I just overstretched my hamstring, so it caused a low hamstring tear on that leg. The Ikinta fight, I subluxed my elbow during the choke because I was not letting go. Nothing really wrong with me after the McGuire fight. My back was sore, but that was just because it was a long, hard fight.
Yeah.
And then a avulsion fracture in my left knee, separated shoulder, cholish.
Anything you had surgery for? Did you have surgery for? You said the knee you had surgery for, and
the knee, eye. The knee and the eye. That was about it. I've been very lucky.
That's pretty good.
Been doing, I went and saw Dr. Bo Hightower in Jackson Wink. He's attached to them. He's really good.
He's like a chiropractor or something, right?
Yeah, he's also a doctor of naturopathy. The dude's very, very intelligent and very, very good at what he does, and he explains it, and I like him, and he's a good guy, and but he's kind of poking around my hamstrings, like not even touching, not telling him my history. He's like, "Have you torn this?" And I'm like, "Yep." And then he did a little bit of IMS, and then he's just like one of those guys who could just through touch he could feel everything that's wrong. I had one other surgery. It was not really related to fighting. It was after the Chiesa fight, and I was getting ready to fight. I wanted to fight in the UFC Saskatoon, and I had a dry needling incident.
Yes, tell me about that shit. So I've done dry needling before. You're the one that had that. I remember reading about it, like sucked it in your arm or something, right?
Yeah. So they're doing the dry needling, and
so was it acupuncture or dry needling? It was dry needling.
It was IMS, intramuscular stimulation, or whatever they wanted to call it. It was dry needling, not acupuncture, because a bunch of acupuncture nerds came after me online. Right. Like, they aren't the same. I'm like, it's an acupuncture needle. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
don't yell at me. I'm the victim.
It's not the same. It's definitely not the same. Like, my wife works at an acupuncture clinic. I've done some dry needling and stuff. It's definitely different. For sure, the way that the needles are used and the points that they use and how they use them. So we'll distinguish that it was different, obviously.
Yeah, I agree completely, and definitely have different practices completely, and But the person who I was doing it with, they're a doctor of chiropractics.
Okay.
They had done a lot of dry needling
Sure.
before, and they had taken all the courses to go with it.
Sure.
So it's not like I was just like I got my buddy at the gym to start stabbing me.
Yeah, with needles. Yeah, it's safe.
Yes,
So yeah, tell me
it
about that.
it
It's
was
gonna scare
professional.
everybody from dry needling, but let's hear it.
So and it had always worked really well because I get tendonitis. I have fairly big forearms from grappling, and so I was feeling sore. So they're working on my arm, and it was one of the last needles. They're like, okay, a couple left, and I hear a little click sound, and I hear uh-oh, and I'm like, what? And I could feel it inside my arm, but
What?
like where they pull it up. Yeah. So what had happened is, and it was a manufacturer's defect on these needles where the handle had broken off right where it inserts. So because the muscle was contracting as it was doing, it basically sucked the needle into the meat of my forearm.
Holy.
And yeah. So the doctor says, "What do I do?" I'm like, "I don't know.
He said that. The guy that was doing it. What do you do? I don't know.
You're not getting a vote of confidence right now, but so I go to the hospital and they don't want to take it out. Okay. And they're like, "Well, the Hippocratic Oath is to do no harm." I'm like, there's a fucking needle in my arm, and every time I turn my forearm, I can feel it bend and hurt more. I feel like this is doing me harm. Well, it's a foreign body. Your body will probably calcify around. I'm like, I'm a professional athlete. You need to take this out of me. So I waited for 2 days every morning because they would just give me the same fucking deal as just like I go there, say, take this out of me, and they're saying no. So I went to another hospital, and then that morning so 2 days after I'd gotten it done, they finally like cut it open, took it out. I had it in a jar for a while. Like I would just look at it and be mad.
Yeah.
And then the biggest thing is I just realized I had to let that baggage go, where it was just impacting me negatively. And I was just like, I don't need this thing. So I threw it out, and it was kind of gratifying inside for me.
Huh. That's a weird, man. Yeah, that sounds like definitely a defect for sure. Yeah, because when you're doing the dry needling, the muscles, you're trying to get that localized twitch response. Mm-hmm. The muscle's kind of trying to twitch, and that's how you know you're getting the trigger point or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so definitely, if it breaks off, I guess it can just your muscle just kind of sucks it in. That is crazy though. I've never heard of that happening. I remember reading about seeing an article on that. Because I follow the MMA websites and stuff, and being a physical therapist, that's something I've done before. I was like, what the hell happened? It said an acupuncture injury, quote unquote acupuncture injury. So I was like, yeah, that's a freak thing for sure. That's definitely a freak injury.
Just like like I said, it's just a freak thing, and being mad about it and focus on it. It's right now. It's kind of a funny story now.
Yeah,
at the time I was super pissed, disappointed. But
did it keep you out of a fight?
Yeah, I want. Saskatoon's my hometown, so I want to fight there.
Right.
And they're like, no, you're going to be in stitches and stuff like that, so you're going to have to take a little bit of time off. And I'm like, so it was just disappointing, but there's always worse things. There was always other fights, and for me, it was just, could always be worse.
Yeah. I mean, how would you say, were you proud of your career? I mean, I know you said you feel like you were better in the gym versus I guess in competition, which I think a lot of people, I think I can relate to that. I think that's a lot of mental, that's definitely a mental thing for sure, in my opinion. I mean, I can compare it to high school soccer, man. I was great. And I felt like I was really good at practice, and then during the games, I just, confidence wasn't there or something. So, I think it's definitely. Did you feel like using a sports psychologist, anything helped you out? Did you feel any advantages from doing that, or just?
Yeah, the sports psych, he helped a ton and kind of got me out of the funk, and he gave me a lot of tools in terms of, especially if I'm moving towards coaching eventually as well, which helped a lot and for grappling. just something wasn't catching for fights anymore, and that might have been just like in here, so in the heart. So it was a lot of good things. But back to the first question, I'm proud of my career. I did a lot of things, and I did well. I won, a couple Canadian titles. I got ranked fairly high in the deepest division in the world. And 155 is the hardest division. I got good wins. I lost, but shit, we all lose.
Yeah.
And I was the first person from Saskatchewan to get into the UFC. To get a win in the UFC. I got a win in the UFC. So many guys they make it, but they never get win, let alone wins.
Yeah.
I got one of the coolest submissions in UFC history, in my opinion. I'm a little bit biased though, but I didn't stick around too long.
Yeah.
And I'm happy about that. My coach, Chad, my wrestling coach in the States, is like, do you miss it? And I can honestly say right now, I certainly don't. I just don't. And it sounds kind of sad, but the thing that is always in the back of my head is I don't miss how I make my family and my loved ones feel.
Right.
And that for me means more to me than the paychecks or the fame and glory. I didn't get a ton of glory, but those things mean so much more to me than what went on with fighting, especially near the end. So, I'm proud of my career. I'm proud of what I did. We were taking a look, and there's over 40,000 people in the world that have or fight at 155.
Oh wow!
And I was ranked fairly high at one point. I think it was, with my win over Al, I'd gotten pretty high, in at least the top 30. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's huge.
So for some kid from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, which is a mouthful, I'm aware.
Yeah.
But I did big things, and a big thing for me is just being able to know that through goal setting and believing in myself, I can achieve really big things, and it doesn't matter what I transfer that to.
Yeah. Do you think like possibly taking some of that competitive nature, like that competitive spirit, like putting that into wrestling that you're wrestling now, is that kind of? Do you think if you would have gone from fighting in the UFC and MMA and training as hard as you did to doing really limited or no competitive things, that it might have you might have a harder transition?
I think so. As you said, doing something competitive means a lot. I think once you're a competitive athlete or a competitive person, it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And taking over a 10-year break from wrestling, coming back and medaling in tournaments is it's a good thing, and it gives me more focus, and I want to keep competing in that, and I want to keep competing in Jiu-Jitsu. I love Jiu-Jitsu. Eventually, I'd like to try and do some qualifiers for ADCC, something like that. Eventually. So that's gonna be the main thing for me. Is eventually that's my next big goal. Is competing in Jiu-Jitsu at a higher level.
How long have you been training Jiu-Jitsu?
10 years, I think. 10 years. So basically, when I was done wrestling, when I ran into Jiu-Jitsu, I got my black belt in 9 years.
Oh, wow.
Under Rodrigo Bondaruca, World Master Champ, and he's won Masters European and stuff like that.
Is there a lot of, like you talked about where you're from, is there a pretty small town, not a lot going on there, very cold, a lot of snow?
Oh yeah, there's lots of snow, that's for sure. Saskatoon it's a smaller city, it has a small city feel, but overall it's a great place. I love Saskatoon. I live in Edmonton now, but there's a lot of jiu-jitsu and martial arts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of snow, and it's still awfully cold.
Cold as shit.
But yeah, I think it was minus 40 last week Celsius.
Terrible. That sounds terrible.
Awful, terrible shit.
Yeah.
But I love my city, my country, and stuff like that. And it's pretty cool to live in a country that's as cold as Antarctica sometimes.
It sounds like it. It sounds terrible.
It's
Um,
awful.
I was going to ask you, man. Tell me about your nickname, Danger Zone. Tell me how
Danger
you got
Zone.
that. I'm curious.
Okay, so it was before my third pro fight, and I was getting ready to fight. And my he's a graphic artist, so he made me some shirts, and he did a caricature of me. I think I still have one. It's a caricature of young me, and he's just like he's trying to fill space around the shirt. You can't just have a caricature of me, and he had a cage on there, and he put "Welcome to the Danger Zone," meeting the cage, and
Yeah.
one of my training partners, Victor Bachman, who was also a fighter and did fairly well. He's kind of obnoxious sometimes, but he's just like, "So you're the Danger Zone?" And
Yeah.
I'm like, I guess so. And before the next fight, the MC was walking around asking if we have nicknames, where we're from, where we train out, all that stuff. I answered all the questions, and he goes behind my back because he's cornering me, and he puts his nickname is Danger Zone.
That's awesome. That's great.
And so it just kind of stuck. It's one of those things where I didn't really like it, so it stuck. And it's very unique. It's different, and I just enjoy it. And who doesn't like a little Kenny Loggins?
So yeah. I mean, some people that's their thing. Not so much mine, but yeah. As far as I was gonna ask you, man, any you said you have like a thing about playing video games. That's something that you still do a lot.
Yeah, actually, I'm pretty lucky. My girlfriend loves playing retro video games.
That's what I heard. You're like, I saw that like an interview you had. Is there anything you like playing or anything you grew up playing that's still something you kind of mess with?
I love Super Nintendo. Like when I beat Al and I got that bonus, I was just like, I got a refurbished. I got my old Super Nintendo and it kicked out, so I got refurbished, cleaned out, brand new one. And I got my favorite video game growing up, which was Turtles in Time.
Yes,
Ninja Turtle,
the
awesome. Ninja Turtles game. Great game. It's still good. So Super Nintendo was definitely my jam. I play some N64 every once in a while. My girlfriend, she loves the original Nintendo, like the NES.
Yeah.
So we have a room called the Fun Room because we're super creative.
Should call it the Danger Zone.
Oh, I like that. I will see if she'll let me put up a couple of those posters I have of it says Danger Zone, Mitch Clarke on it.
Room. That makes sense.
We play retro video games in there, and we're perfectly nerdy together.
That's awesome, man. Well, good. Congratulations on that. It sounds like, man, you're having an awesome post-retirement career, training and all that stuff. Mitch, that's all I got, man. I appreciate you taking the time. Best of luck in getting into school. Achieving the next part of your journey for sure.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it's awesome. It was really fun to watch you fight. It really, really was, man. You had a kind of a toughness that, sometimes a little bit hard to watch because you really could take a lot, man. But it was fun. It was fun to watch somebody that kind of had a lot of heart and could really just kind of push. You pushed really hard, and so some of us don't have the ability to do that. And it's fun to see somebody that can kind of work through that and do that. So I appreciate the time, man. Thank you so much. And if you need anything from me that, as far as any questions about physical therapy or physiotherapy school, as you all call it up in Canada, let me know. I'd be more than happy to give you some any information that I have. So
thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time,
Dude, it's awesome. My pleasure.
People like you are the reason why I loved fighting. You guys are the ones that made it worth it. It certainly wasn't the money, wasn't the free T-shirts. It was the people and the connections you got with good people that were in the sport. So thank you for all that you do.
Dude, thank you, man. I appreciate your time and best of luck.